Hi, welcome to New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble host. Today we have Sarfraz Ahmed, who lives and works in East Midlands, UK, and is a careers advisor, branching out as a trainer, assessor, and a careers writer. He has been writing poetry for over 18 years and has contributed to many anthologies, including Paint the Sky with Stars, published by Reinvention UK, and many others published by the United Press, and many online contributions. His published books include the poetry debut 84 Pens and My Teacher's an Alien, which is a children's book with illustrator Natasha Adams from Green Cat Books. Published both books at the greencatbooks.com or greencat.co/books. He has published his second collection of poetry with Annette Tarpley, Two Hearts. Sarfraz moderates the Large Passion of Poetry group on Facebook and has a following on Facebook and Instagram. You can find him at open mic events where he shares his poetry globally, including the New York circuit. Thanks for joining us today, Sarfraz. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So, when did you start writing poetry and why?
Yes, it's actually a question that I get asked quite a lot now. I've probably been writing now. It's actually been about it's going up to the 19 year, and next year obviously be 20. So I started writing just because it started initially when I was actually just talking to my sister, and she had like a box of collected poetry. She had like this box of poems that she really liked, and I said to her, do you know, I could write that. I could, a bit of a challenge. And she goes to me, well, why don't you? And so I started putting pen to paper. I started putting some ideas and thoughts and so on. And the early poems were a mix of, I don't think I could publish any of the early ones, the complete early ones. They were sort of very experimental. And I started and I absolutely love it. I fell in love with it. And I carried on writing. And then I started going to workshops. So I started going to workshops, and that was exciting. Always wanted to get like my own collection of poems published, and I was very, very lucky. I think with a lot of poets that I'm meeting, kind of got a lot of this stuff together in lockdown, and I got my published last year in June 2020.
And that was your first book?
Yeah, I've got it. It's there. It's there it is.
Very interesting.
Yeah, the 84 Pins poetry collection. It's not 84 poems. It's the name of the first poem, 84 Pins.
Okay. So when did you first start sharing your writing? Was it with that book, or did you?
No, I started sharing my writing actually in a couple of anthologies and collections that I was asked to be put in. So I started going to workshops, and there I met a lot of actually quite prestigious people. Actually, I was very, very fortunate. So I met some published poets who wanted me to contribute to some anthologies, and so I did. So Paint the Sky with Stars was one of them, and then also United Press, which was like a series of these poetry collections, and I think I got about 13 or 14 actually, where I got some of my poems in. And then I started going online to Cosmofunnel, which is a US website, which you're probably familiar with, called Cosmofunnel. And a lot of my work is actually still on there. But at the beginning, I was very, I was a bit sort of, I could call myself the secret poet because I have a new book coming out, and in there I do kind of I do talk about how I got into writing, and I call myself the secret poet. And as many writers and poets, we all wrote in secret. So I used to, write in secret, type them up, and sometimes they'd go online. Sometimes I didn't do anything with them. They were just my own diary collection of my experiences through life. And the 84 Pins was actually got published last year, but it was actually taken from 2014. 6 months of my life is that 84 Pins of weddings and funerals that I went to. I went on lots of holidays, excursions, lots of nice experiences, and that actually was a whole collection of poetry, and it hasn't been changed. The order hasn't been changed. It's just exactly as I wrote it.
Wow. So why don't you tell us about some of your other books? How long did they take to write? And what
Yeah,
subjects do you find easiest to write about?
I mean, and it was quite interesting because the 84 pins, this little book has only got
Uh-huh.
60 poems in, where which is not a lot, but that actually opened up the door for my poetry to go global. And I was so, with the net and social media, you don't know what you're letting yourself in for. And I was getting lots of messages, a huge amount of messages from the US. And that's where I met Annette Tarpley, and I met also Keisha Mulvey Bayes, who's actually a New York poet and inspirational writer who really became friends with me, and that's where I started going onto the New York circuit and doing open mic sessions.
Okay.
And I found this new kind of community of poets
Hmm.
that weren't there at the beginning where I was started out. There was, the social media wasn't really there, and we didn't have this group of poets. So when I first wrote 84 Pins, it wasn't meant to be published. It was just something that I wrote about. And Annette, when she started reading this, she called me the romantic poet because a lot of my poems are love poems or to do with love or the tragedy of love or the yearning for love
Hmm.
as well. But I write about other things as well. But that's what she called me, and through started talking to Annette Tarpley, who I know you've had on the show, and she's
Hmm.
quite a big name in the world of poetry, to be honest. Annette is, and she said she kind of started talking to me, and because our styles are very very similar, and she goes, Sarfraz, would you like to write a book together? And I said, yeah, well, why not? It would be fantastic to write a book together. So we actually started writing, and in February or just of this year, the Two Hearts book came
Okay.
out, which is there, and that's about 136 poems in there. We did a lot of collaborative pieces as well, which I found fantastic. It was really great to do that. That book was very, very different. In fact, that book, as you asked us and you asked how long it took, the 84 Pins was written in 6 months, but it was written about 6 years ago and it got published later. So the poems were already there. They just needed to be sorted out into a book. The
Hmm.
Two Hearts was actually put together in 3 months, less than 3 months, to be honest.
Wow.
With myself, obviously in the UK, Annette in the US, and then we have GMGA Publishing, Iowa, who's in the Philippines, who actually
Hmm.
can you imagine us talking, right across the globe, and but it was exciting because I took a lot of the editorial sort of side of things and helped put the book together with all of us, and I put it together mainly in the Christmas time. Yeah, in 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks off at work, and I put it together, and the rest we kind of put it between us. So it took about 2 months, 2 to 3 months, from beginning to end.
Wow. So it's sort of a global effort there, and
It was a
deploying.
huge global effort. I mean that's an Amazon bestseller. It
Oh
became
yeah.
an Amazon bestseller. It was after. I think it was really interesting when it actually got when it was released, because obviously with the GMGA publishing, they are global, and
Hmm.
that's what they do. And so we had lots of interviews and so on, but we were behind Shakespeare. We came in at number 2 behind Shakespeare, and then I think about sort of midweek we actually took him all over, and
Oh wow.
the book was an Amazon bestseller. So yes, that was a fantastic thing to happen.
Excellent.
Um, so after Two Hearts, and then the children's book, because
Uh-huh.
so the children's book came out. It came about because there it is. My
Huh?
teacher's my teacher's an alien there. It's doing really well, actually. I'm really, really pleased that people have really, really liked it, because it's only for me. It's a poem. That's a poem that I wrote in 2000 and I think 11. I wrote it a long time ago, 10 years ago, and I wrote it for my nephew, who was 9 years old at the time.
Huh?
And again, it was one of those things that he was reading books, and I said, "Oh look, I think I could write you something. I'll write you something." And I came up with My Teacher's an Alien, and then by chance I met the illustrator who I already knew, and I said, "Well, I think I've got a poem that would make a good children's book." And so she kind of collaborated, and that was put together quite quickly again and released in November. So, you know, it all happened very, very quickly. And then, so you've got June for my first debut book, 2020, November for my children's book. Then you got February for the Two Hearts, which is the big poetry collection by Annette Tarpley and myself that has done phenomenally, really, really well right across everywhere, and kind of launched certainly my name in the US again, which has been really, really great. And now I've got my next book, my kind of solo collection, which is coming up. It's hopefully July and August, called Stab the Pomegranate.
Okay.
Yeah, again, the book is in two halves, and what I wanted to do, because I was getting so much attention for the early poetry that I've been writing over 19 years, and I wanted to showcase that as well, to kind of give you the kind of a retrospect of the best work. So what I did do, I actually put together about 48 poems that have done really, really well, including the ones that were in all the anthologies that you mentioned earlier. Stab the Pomegranate was in a magazine, and it caught so much attention at the time. And that will be my next book. And so it's in two halves. One's called This Is, That Was Then. And then I've got another bit which is called This Is Now. And then and I've been writing collaboratively as well. So again, with Dennis Brown, who you've had on the show, I've been writing with Timothy DeVito, I've been writing with Annette Tarpley and Pratibha Savani, who's another writer from the UK, and Jack Tomlinson as well, who's actually quite a renowned poet in the UK as well. So we've got some really cool collaborations in there. So I've got 111 poems in there.
Wow, that's impressive. It's quite a work. I mean, it's wonderful that you're doing all these collaborations and continuing to write, and you know, it started off as just kind of like, you know, you had a box of poetry books and you're just like, I can do this.
It started with a box of poems that were just ripped out poems that were little pieces of paper, and I kind of talked to my younger sister, and she goes, well, and I said, well, I think I know I can write poetry, and she goes, well, why don't you? And that was a really quite profound moment, because she said, well, why don't you? And I said, well, actually, I don't know why I'm not. So I started putting pen to paper and kind of, you know, kind of experimenting and really getting a passion for it, and then it became real part of my life. I mean, lots of nice things have happened, because obviously this has been a journey, and in May of this year, 2021, I was named one of the World Contemporary Poets by the World Contemporary Poets Society, and that was an amazing accolade to get in a short space of time. But people have got to recognize, I mean, the books have been out just obviously recently, but I have been around writing poetry for a huge amount of time. But it's only now, since I've really kind of put some of my work out there, that it's got being recognized and people really enjoying it. I mean, Dustin, did you want me to read anything today?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to ask you one more question and then lead into that.
Yeah, go for it.
So what do you think the best way to write a love poem is?
Wow. Okay. I write, I could easily write a love poem. You said to me, Sarfraz, could you write one now? I would write one now. What you've got to do with a love poem, you have got to go into your emotions of actually falling in love, or being in love with someone, or yearning for someone or something. And you've got to be truthful, and you've got to show your vulnerability. And I mean, as you mentioned earlier, I am on Instagram, and I do share a lot of my poetry on there. And the interesting thing and the most kind of attention that I get are the love poems, or the poems that I write that are quite raw and vulnerable, that show my vulnerability, and that's what you've got to do. I think for a love poem, you have got to get in tune with your emotions, the emotions that you felt for another person, and yearning for someone as well or something, and put those words in there. Don't try and replicate what's out there. Don't even read, go blind, write what you feel. And I think that's really it, and it took a long time, because for someone to show their vulnerability, especially as a young man out there in the world, it's really difficult, because you don't normally do that. You don't want to show that you are a vulnerable person, and but as a poet, we have got to do that. We've got to embrace it, because when you start doing that, your poetry becomes tenfold. It becomes fantastic. It becomes this fantastic work that other people really, really understand, and they're kind of in tune with as well. Because they've been through everyone's been through those kind of emotions. We as poets, all we do, we actually put it onto a piece of paper and kind of touch those emotions and those heartstrings.
Excellent. So why don't you read us something?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to read something from Two Hearts. Now, Two Hearts has got 5 sections in there, and they're not all love poems. But I'm going to read. Actually, we'll read this. It's actually just come up, but it's called "If You Had Looked My Way." If I could go back to where it all began, where it all started, I would capture and contain it, hold it and mold it at will. If I could, I would hold it still. So I could revel in the joy and the pain. I would go back to the moment just to see if you would give me that look, that stirring kind, the smile that lingered, that gave me hope that one day you could be mine. Just for a moment, a split second before time took its toll, took you away from my soul like the plucking of autumn leaves by the winds that blew. Time folded and unfolded, took you away from me, forever buried in history. So far yet so near, in dreams you appear, then fade away. But I can't help thinking how my life would have changed if you had looked my way. Thank you.
Definitely a very vulnerable poem.
Yeah, it's and you get to and that's, I think that's what people sometimes shy away from. I've actually been reading. I read a lot, actually, a lot of poetry, and I've been engaging with lots of poets, and I've been encouraging people to be vulnerable, and they're not. Or to kind of open up a bit more, because I've actually. I'm talking. I was doing a bit. I was doing a review for a poet, who obviously she had a book just released, and she asked me, she goes, "Sarfraz, be truthful to me, tell me how my poems could be better." And I said, "You've got to show your vulnerability, and when you show your vulnerability, you go tenfold. The poem becomes so meaningful, and it resonates with the reader." I want to read you this one. This is a very short one, Dustin, and I have lots and lots of influences out there, people that I love, and one of the people that I love is Maya Angelou. I think everyone loves her. But this one is very similar to her style. It's called Arch the Moon. If you were to say yes, if you were to say it was true, then I would serenade under the stars, bring the moon to you. I would take your hand the way the lovers do. I would arch the moon. I would do it for you.
Wow. Very simple, but very imaginative and very full of longing,
Yeah, it's literally got 8 lines, and I think it's got about 40 words, if that. It's probably the most edited poem that I wrote, and I love the idea of arching the moon for someone to make it, for them. And again, it's yearning, isn't it? A yearning for someone or something. And this was, and I knew I was writing at the time when I was writing this. I knew I was writing something with Annette Tarpley, who she called me the romantic poet. She always she always used to call me that. So I knew I had to bring something really romantic for the book. The book's actually got 5 parts in it, and what I can do, if you like, I can read something that's not love, but I'm going to read something from the earlier stuff as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to read I Rise Up Again, you can see the kind of the influences of course, Maya Angelou in this.
Hmm.
And this was going on probably at the Black Lives Matter sort of time.
Okay.
I was writing this not so long ago. So I rise up from the dust of history's gaze, from the bloods of encapsulated slaves, bound by shackles, tied to metal and stone, but cut through skin and bone. I rise up holding onto a wing and prayer, the tail end of hope, a sparkle that burns through the darkness, penetrates through the torched cries of the caged bird. From the gravel pits of history, from the pain I endured time after time, from the strength I found in the heart, in the comfort of strangers, those that have come and gone, from the hope of another rising sun, from the kiss of the phoenix, from the belly of the dragon, dreams that used to exist. I rise up, I stand tall in the midst of history's gaze, I fly like a shadow upon all those that did me wrong. I rise up like fire, I burn hard and I burn strong.
It's very rhythmic, and the way the words work together, that's excellent. And of course, it can be in any kind of occasion of someone rising above, but it does fit that
Could be anything, couldn't it?
that time period very much so of Black Lives Matter and that essence of those movements at that period. Yeah.
At the time, I mean, there was so much going on. There was obviously we were in a period of lockdown. And I think that really kind of connected people. We as poets, we connected right across the world, and we wrote, we kind of wrote together. We're on, I mean, obviously the Passion of Poetry, I'm an administrator there with about 7 million members. So, we're hoping to bring an anthology out soon, the Passion of Poetry anthology. We're kind of working on that at the moment. So, there's and also there's a yearning as well. We want some hope. Our people need hope, and we want, and also positive vibes as well, some really positivity as well. So that's, I mean, the book is very exciting. I mean, I remember doing a lot of interviews around the time, and people people on the surface, you think, oh, it's a love, poetry, or but it's not actually. You've got a lot of emotions in there, and it's got sadness, it's got happiness, it's got all sorts of different kinds of poetry that will engage you and take you to different levels. And of course you've got Annette's poetry as well alongside mine. So you can you've got two poets that are kind of writing about different things as well. Okay, let's I'm going to take you right to the beginning, to the first. Okay, this is where it all kind of began a little bit. I'm actually gonna read out the 84 Pins poem.
Okay.
I've only read Dustin. I've only read it out once. I've read it out because it's a very special poem, a very haunting poem. But it's 84 pins. 84 pins kept her thin, upright like a mannequin, cut into a dress, bled right in. The finest gold adorned her body from top to toe. The finest jeweled intertwined shaped her body, a tapestry of color blushed ruby red. With each step, her dress obediently followed, set ripples deep as the ocean, subtle as the sea. As she took her first step into the vastness, into the unknown, the very thought chilled her to the bone. As she walked down the stairs, she caught a glimpse of her face, scarred by makeup, her body covered up by layers, satin, silk, and lace. She never felt more out of place. The mask she wore made her unrecognizable from the beauty she once was, stripped of her innocence, her youth. It was as if deep down she knew the truth, that a part of her had died. Her eyes were sad, but there was no tears left to cry. She poised herself, took control. She held on tight, took flight, took a deep breath, as 84 pins kept her thin, upright like a mannequin, cut into a dress, bled right in. Broke through the chrysalis, she took her first step, left the old self behind. As she stepped outside into an unsuspecting world, emerged a bride.
Excellent. I like there's like sort of a refrain going on there, and then it's an interesting poem. What is that about?
That's actually, it's interesting because I mean this period of my life, I think I went to two or three weddings, found big occasions, and it was the bride, and it was actually the bride looking quite actually not very happy. She looked tortured and quite, she wasn't very happy. Maybe it was just the way I saw her, maybe the angle, and it was it came up as the pins, 84 pins of the dress that made the dress were actually cutting into her skin and bleeding in, and actually to make it fit were actually hurting her. She was in quite a lot of pain, and it was those emotions of this bride that did not want to get married, and it was lots of different kind of things going on. Maybe there was a lot of things going on in there, but I when I wrote that, I remember writing it and actually taking a step back and actually throwing the pen down, thinking, oh my God, what the hell have I written here? This is like, wow. This is like, I was really stepped back by this, as a writer. Definitely I was thinking, oh my God, where am I going with this?
Right.
But it has opened up a lot of discussion, and people have loved it. And when I had the chance to put my debut collection together, there was no doubt in my mind that it was going to be this collection of poetry that I wrote, and it was the 84 Pins collection. Always in my head, I always thought, yeah, that's always the 84 Pins collection. But that's the first poem. That's the first poem. Very haunting. You could read so much into it. There's so many layers, and yeah, I mean, the next book, which is called Stab the Pomegranate, that is a very similar poem to this, where someone is stabbing the pomegranate, but stabbing the heart of someone, and literally very emotive. And again, I've had a couple of sneak previews of people who have actually read it, and they've come back to me and said, Sarfraz, that is wow, there's something there. So I'm quite excited by this. I was at the time when I first when the book first came out, the 84 Pins, I was very nervous. I was so nervous. I was thinking, oh my God, what are people going to think about me as a writer? What they're going to think? Because you always think, you do overthink things. But it's been absolutely fantastic. What's really got me, and I'm really pleased by this, is it's just the global community of poets that are out there, especially in the US. I've had a huge amount of people buying my poetry, connecting with me, making friends. I chat to them on a weekly basis. Obviously some in the UK, but mostly for me, it's the States.
Wow.
It's the US.
I get a lot of people in India that like what I'm doing. I don't know why that. You never know where you're going to strike. You never know where
you don't know where you're going to strike. I mean, especially with my name, I thought, yes, India or somewhere like that, with my name being, an Asian sort of name, but no, it's largely, if you read it, I think a lot of it just where it hits. And I think with Annette, her fan base is definitely India. You got Bangladesh, you got South Asia. She was telling me when I first met her, and I was thinking, this is like, wow, this is amazing that you're really, really popular over there. But yes, it's exciting. I mean, I've got my next collection is out in about a couple of weeks' time, hopefully, late July, early August. The Stab the Pomegranate. I'm excited to put it out. I'm excited to showcase some of my early work, which caused a lot of stir, which caused a lot of excitement at the time. But I think I wasn't as confident or perhaps ready as I am now to showcase that work, and also some of my joint poetry and some of my my latest stuff as well. So there's 111 poems in there. I just finished the manuscript. The manuscript's done. It's just going into the publishing sort of stage of it, and I'll probably get a couple of drafts back for me to check, as you probably know happens. So, but I'm really excited, and we've got the Passion of Poetry anthology coming out, which is going to be big. Actually, there's quite a lot. There's over 100 poems already in there. And we're going through, it's going to be massive, and that's obviously Annette Tarpley and of course Dennis and so on, and but yeah, that's global as well. We've got poets from all corners of the world that have submitted work into that, and it's amazing.
What is the mission of the Passion of Poetry? as a group? What do you guys? What are your aims as a group of?
When I first started, Dustin, that's a really great question, because again, when Annette asked me, she goes, Sarfraz, you want to get involved in, the Passion of Poetry, which obviously Annette Tarpley is the founder of that group. And when I started, it wasn't, there were about 3,000 or so on, but now it's gone up to 7, going up to 8,000. And that's just within the last couple of months or so. I think certainly from my point of view, and I know I was speaking to Annette last night actually, and certainly talking to Annette, I think we wanted somewhere where people from all around the world, globally, all walks of life, that have got a real passion for poetry can actually showcase their work. So they can obviously put the poems on there, other people can share. Also, it's a great platform to share good ideas and to share your work, because if you put the fact that you've done a book out there, or hopefully when I put the link to this wonderful interview today, people will get to find out about my poetry, but also get to find about what you guys do. And it's that. And I think with poetry, because it is such a specialist niche area, I think the fact that I've read some of my work out, that's what needs to happen. I think poetry needs to be out there more. So people don't just dismiss books or poets, they actually read or find out a little bit more about them.
Right.
But it's absolutely fantastic, I think. But I really enjoy being part of the Passion of Poetry, because of the timing, really, because of lockdown, of the global pandemic, coronavirus. You can imagine what, if you're on your own, and it can get quite, from a well-being point of view, you can get very anxious, you can get really worried. But I've got a whole family, we call it the POP family, the Passion of Poetry family, and we're talking to one another, we're chatting to one another, we have goals, we support one another. So if someone's got a book out there, we will share it, we will do reviews, and we'll collaborate. I mean, this weekend I worked with Timothy DeVito, who's one of my favorite poets, and he's got his second book coming out. But we just connected it online, and then we started writing poetry, and we wrote 2 this weekend. So I put one out yesterday, and that was fantastic, and I put another one out today as well.
I really love doing collaborations.
I love collaborating. I've done about 60. I could do a book.
Wow.
I've got enough for a book of collaborations.
Excellent.
I've got, yeah. I mean, I write probably about 2 or 3 collaborations a week, alongside my own work. So I'm, I mean, I'm not one of those poets that writes poetry I write poetry every single day, but it's not the finished piece. I will write a couple of lines and then I'll revisit it. Whereas I know certain other poets that I know will write a poem in like 10 minutes. That's it, job done. I don't know how you write. I mean, do you have a special
varies?
Yeah.
It varies. I just work. A lot of times I feel like I'm pounding on a pulpit. Like I'm an angry, passionate poet, just writing. And I type out just whatever words I feel have loaded meaning, and I string them together in a way that I feel like kind of situates the emotion a little bit, and then the sort of the images and the situation of the poem sort of arise from that.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's how I've been writing lately, and sometimes I just it just varies for me. That's been my method lately, has been just kind of letting stream of consciousness take care of it, and I might go back and edit, like if I have too many words that are phrases that are poorly constructed, or maybe like too many these or something like that. I take some of those out, or if I have it too general phrasings, I may chip away at it a little bit. It's like, for me, it's like doing any other art form where I was thinking of it watching some charcoal drawings the other night, last night actually, and I was thinking how like cutting away at some of the words, it's like rubbing the charcoal. It's like, it felt like that to me. So
I mean, certainly it's interesting. Obviously, you talked about the way you put a poem together. Certainly, what I do, I will. I mean, this is only very recently, but I have a notebook which I have with me kind of all the time, and I will scribble the odd word, the odd line, and sometimes I'm very close to finishing it, but I don't actually finish it. I will go back with a fresh pair of eyes, and it's amazing what happens when you read something again. You see something else in it, and it's just the way that you you kind of put it out there, and there's certain words and, like you said, phrases. Certain, I mean, sometimes I'm watching the news or things that are around me, because when in my new book, The Stab the Pomegranate, I talk about, there's a section I put in there. I wrote a story which is called The Secret Poet, and in there I talk about how I got into writing from the just some of the stuff that I talked about, and also my journey as a poet, literally for the last, for the last 18 years or so, to kind of now where I'm at now as a poet, and to the point now where I'm actually with my third publisher. So I wrote initially with Green Cat, which were fantastic publishers, moving on to GMGA, a bit more global, a bit more bigger. Now I'm actually with Publish Nation, who's actually my latest publisher as well, based in the UK. So I've moved around a bit, and also the thing what it is with each book, I've actually learned something else about the whole publishing world, and how to put books together, and how to edit, and what works and what doesn't work, and that's actually an amazing skill, because as poets, as writers, we can write poetry, but do we know how to put a book together? I mean, that's always the kind of the hard bit sometimes, where you got so many poets out there that are really great poets, but they haven't had a book published, or they haven't gone that far, because they are kind of bit sometimes worried or afraid of the publishing world, or they don't understand it, or they're not ready for it. And I think it's all been a journey from the first book that I got done to my fourth one, which is out soon. And I like to come back and read some of the poems from The Stab the Pomegranate, because I think they're kind of exciting and something a bit different as well. But yeah, it's just an amazing journey, and it's so nice to actually be with lots and lots of poets that are out there as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we have a few minutes left if you'd like to thank some people, or share some words of wisdom with the writers out there who are maybe struggling a little bit to.
Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, that's actually really interesting, because I was, for any poet, because obviously we're talking about poetry. Poetry is a very specialist sort of area, it's a niche area, and what you've got to do, you've got to go navigate to like-minded people. So don't be afraid of social media, linking into obviously Facebook. Cosmofunnel is fantastic. It was the first platform that I use. It's a US platform, and there's artists in there. There's obviously poets, the writers. There's all sorts of people out there. And the nice thing about that is with Cosmofunnel, you can actually you can publish your poem out there. So it's been published, so you publish it on there, but you'll get feedback from the people, and you'll get followers, and you'll get supporters, and you'll get advice. So don't be afraid of putting your poems out there. Don't be afraid to be a bit cheeky as well. So, if you see, a submission for an anthology, what have you got to lose? Put it out there. Nothing's going to happen. Don't be afraid to engage with people on social media. Like what I found really, really great, especially in the world that I kind of obviously now when my books are being published, is social media is your friend. Don't be afraid of Facebook, and don't be afraid of Messenger. Be a bit cheeky, saying hello to someone, and tell them that you're a great fan. I mean, on Instagram, Instagram's just a crazy place, but there's some amazing poetry out there. Some of the best, the poetry that really inspires me is probably from Instagram. Some of the stuff that people are putting out there really kind of pulls on my heartstrings and gets me excited. And I've been writing for almost 20 years. So don't be afraid of that. And I think really at the end of the day, believe in yourself. You've got to ask yourself as a writer, why are you writing? What is the purpose of all this? So, the answer could be, I want to make lots of money. Well, as poets, we know that's not always going to be that. That's not going to happen. However, if you're someone who just wants to get your work out there, then with poetry, you can do it, and you've got to do what you love doing. And don't be afraid to, for example, if anyone's out there and you want to reach out to me as Sarfraz Ahmed on Facebook or Messenger or Instagram or anything like that, don't be afraid. The names that I've said, like Annette Tarpley and Dennis, we are all, these are people that are out there, and you can talk to them and join the passion of poetry, definitely, why not showcase some of your work? I will be excited to read it and publish it out there, you know. But I think it's an exciting time for poets and writers, because, you know, 20 years ago, the only place you could actually publish was a book or a journal or a magazine. You know, the online world wasn't really a place that we would even go close to. As social media has become so, you know, acceptable, you can throw a couple of, you know, poems out there, see what people think. See what feedback you're getting, and you'll start getting followers, and you'll get a fan base. And people on Instagram, I am getting so many messages saying, "Oh, Sarfraz, when I can't wait for the next one," or when would you release a new poem? Or some that I've got some feedback to say, you know, that poem really touched my heart because I was going through a difficult time in my life, because I've written about all sorts of things, from grief through love, through all the emotions. And when you touch someone's soul, and when you've, you know, changed their life, then you know that you're doing something right.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Sarfraz, and it's been wonderful speaking with you, and you shared some interesting perspectives and thoughts and poetry as well, and we were glad to have you on the show. And this has been New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, and if anybody would like to donate, we have paypal.me/nyparrot, and you can get in touch with me at Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com if anybody is wanting a platform for their poetry or their art or any other creative output they're doing. Please be in touch with me there. And just hit that subscribe button. It's right there on the YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button. We're looking for 1 million subscribers, and we will not stop until we get the 1 million subscribers. And we want you to be one of them. And thanks to our viewers out there for listening in and watching us. We really appreciate it. Share our content, tell others about us, share our flyers. Please feel free to get in touch with us. Again, at Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. And I'm Dustin Pickering. And have a lovely afternoon. Keep writing, keep up spirit, and don't give up. And make sure that you stay in focus, and don't ever stop writing. Don't ever stop. Just keep it out. Keep going. The output is tremendous. We need more writers in the world. We need more readers, and just encourage as much literacy as possible. And thank you very much again, Sarfraz. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dustin.
You're welcome, and thank you.